The November 22nd, 2022 Plan Commission.
Roll call, please.
And I. Grillo here.
Krasinski here.
Clark here.
Gavich here.
Guzikowski here.
Oldani here.
Seifert here.
Chandler here.
Item 3, approval of minutes from November 8th, 2022. Commissioners, would all please take a look? And when you're satisfied, there's no discussion, errors, omissions, corrections. Motion, please.
Seifert moves to approve the minutes of November 8th, 2022.
Clark seconds. Roll call. Beginning with Christine.
And I.
Grillo, aye. Krasinski, aye.
Clark, aye. Gavich, aye. Guzikowski abstain.
Oldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, I.
Okay. That'll get us to item 4, and that is recent common council actions. Doug? Yeah, you haven't been here for a while.
We're not to turn on the microphone, that's good. Some of the recent common council actions from the meeting of November 15th, the council approved an ordinance to rezone a portion of the property at 1709 West Drexel Avenue from A1 agricultural to P1 park, and this was, if you're familiar, the conversion of this property from the state. We purchased it for the Drexel Avenue interchange and I-94 freeway construction. We're just returning that to Milwaukee County for part of Falk Park. They also approved 2 resolutions, very exciting, that acquired portions of the properties at 9100 South Fifth Avenue and 4301 East Depot Road. These properties, portions of them, are being acquired for the purposes of the city's project to restore and reinforce the bluff along the lakefront and north of Lake Vista. These were necessary in working with the property owners to secure not only the access to this work, but also to secure land for future parkland right along the lake bluff. So very, very pleased to report that the council did approve those and will be acquiring those, and that project will be getting underway very shortly. Are there any questions about any of those recent council actions?
Okay. Thank you, Doug. Appreciate that. Item 5, the report on recent board and housing and zoning appeal actions. There were currently none. Item 6, your next discussion on the quarterly Parks Recreation Commission actions will be on our next meeting, December 13th, 2022, which will get us to old business, item 7A, and it is review site, building, and related plans submitted by Caitlin LaJoy, Brian Builder Corporation for a multi-tenant industrial building on the portions of the property at 7433 South 10th and 7300 South 13th. Doug?
Thank you. As part of the last meeting, the commission did review the site and building plans for the property at 7433 South 10th Street, and there were a number of issues and concerns that did come up during the course of that review, and thus the review was held to this meeting. The plans have been resubmitted by the applicant, and there are still a number of, I wouldn't call them concerns. I mean, there's a number of things that they took care of. There may be just a few minor things that are outstanding, but staff in their review of the proposal did note that that the wetland permit from the DNR was really the driving factor, and we really did need some clarification from them. So, while we don't have that in hand, we will require that permit be presented to the city prior to the issuance of any land disturbing activities. I think staff is comfortable with that. There are also some conditions with respect to the fire department's access and maneuverability of some of their equipment. There's an exhibit as part of your plans that do show that the area, particularly along the east side of the building, does fit the template for the fire department's vehicles. I understand there may be some minor modifications that may need to be made to the west parking lot, but those can be made prior to the issuance of building permits. There are a number of conditions that are shown as part of the suggested motion, and we can get into those, but I just wanted to highlight just a few things with respect to the site plan. You can see that the landscaping plan was revised, provide some additional landscaping. You can see that and it's not in this one, but it's in your packet. Again, but it's demonstrated the fire department vehicle and how they maneuver in the back there. The plans were also revised to show the area that's being acquired for open space purposes, and which would be the subject of that wetland fill permit from the DNR. The building renderings themselves, and staff appreciates kind of the builder taking suggestions to heart with respect to the color palette of the building. The one thing that we did suggest is that the windows along the north elevation kind of rearranged to more really reflect the fenestration and window pattern along the office building to the north. For many reasons, the applicant has said that it's unrealistic to do that. Staff totally understands that. It was merely a suggestion. I think the building looks great, and I don't know that there's any need to include that as part of the motion. I think that the building does look fine. So those were the major changes, and Caitlin, if I'm missing any, then feel free to, be a part of this conversation. But with that in mind, there's a suggested motion for the Plan Commission's action on the screen, and be happy to answer any questions or comments from the commission.
Okay, thank you very much, Doug. We'll start off with the commissioners. Christine, can we start on your end, please?
Sure, I have no questions.
Dawn?
I have nothing.
Ashley? Greg?
Just one question for clarification. I know we held this item at the last meeting because there was a lot of unanswered questions and a lot of conditions, but it's my understanding that staff is now comfortable moving ahead with the conditions that are displayed here.
I think that's fair, and you're right, there are a number of conditions, and a lot of those conditions are, things that are, for instance, the first one, that all relevant code requirements remain in effect. Well, yeah, of course, all relevant code conditions remain in effect, and I don't even know that we necessarily need that one, but a lot of these things are kind of restating the obvious and things that are required to do, like the recording the certified survey map, and that we get a copy of the conditions and restrictions. The major ones, as I alluded to earlier, were the wetland fill permit and the fire department maneuverability, as well as the third one was the architecture. So I'm looking with the commission's consent to drop item number 9 of those.
Thank you.
Is that it, Greg? Chris?
No questions for me.
Don?
One question. On item number 6, fire department comments. So we know there were some comments 2 weeks ago. I guess I don't understand quite what we're saying here. Is there something holding them to making sure that the changes are made for the fire department's approval? That this just doesn't get lost in the shuffle? What's holding them to number 6, I guess?
Chief Havey, you want to answer that, or Doug?
Well, I mean, as with the entire fire code, I mean, it's in effect regardless of whether the Plan Commission puts it as a condition or not. I think the Plan Commission puts it as a condition, just as you stated, Commissioner Oldani, just as a reminder that needs to be addressed and taken care of before we're in a position to issue any permits.
Chief Havey?
Good evening, Mike Havey, Assistant Chief of Fire. Yeah, some of the comments, we did include some modifications to the site plan where the FTC was located, and confirming that the turning templates were applicable to our units. We just got to verify some other areas, but we think that the progress we've made, we feel pretty good about where we're at right now going through the building permit process to ensure all of those things take place.
Cool. Thanks. That's it for me.
Okay, Fred?
No questions at this time.
Chauncey?
I do have questions for the applicant.
Name and address, please.
Caitlin LaJoy, 3885 North Brookfield Road, Brookfield, Wisconsin, 53045.
Okay, my first question is in regards to engineering's concerns. On the plans, it was showing on the north side, 2-to-1 slopes, but the requirement is 4-to-1, so will that be implemented on site?
Yeah, so we've been working with engineering end of last week, early this week. There's a couple different options out there that we're reviewing together with our team and your staff as well. Relocating doors, adjusting the slope there, so that will be a mutual agreement, correct?
Okay. And then also with the landscaping plans and tree preservation, it was noted that there were a certain amount of trees that should have been on site, but they were short, a
Correct.
certain quantity.
The missing 6 were added to the revised plans that will be resubmitted.
And those with your consent would be approved at the director's level.
Just to kind of build on the comment earlier about the DNR and DOT approvals, we are still going through this process with both agencies, and they will be in hand prior to even submitting the building permit application. So not receiving the permit, but the application to staff will have the DNR and DOT approvals.
Could you repeat that last part?
I was just saying, so we will have the DNR and DOT approvals in hand when we make the submittal for the building permit application, not just receipt of the permit. So even before your review of the building permit application, we'll have those in hand.
Okay. And then a question in regards to the fire department requirements. So there were some questions about the turning radiuses as well as the emergency exits. So will that also be addressed?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. You guys covered just about all my questions. It was really concerned fire, the turning radius, and then of course, the fire pump hookup went from the west side to
West, yes, correct.
really want to thank you for working with us.
Very mutual, thank you.
I know you're chomping at the bit to kind of get in. Do you have tentative groundbreak?
It would be spring of 23. Mm-hmm.
So, because there was some substantial work to do, remarkable progress. Yeah. There's no further discussion or questions.
Thank you.
Anybody, Don?
Yeah, I'll go. We're striking 9, correct? Okay. Well, Donnie moves that the Plan Commission approves the site and building plan submitted by Caitlin LaJoy, Braun Building Corporation for a multi-tenant industrial building on portions of the properties at 7433 South 10th Street and 7300 South 13th Street with the following conditions. 1, that all relevant code requirements remain in effect. 2, that the certified survey map approved by the Common Council on November 1st, 2022 is recorded with the easement and stormwater management agreement prior to submission of permit applications. 3, that a copy of the signed condition and restrictions approved as part of the conditional use permit amendment approved by the Common Council in Ordinance 3053 is submitted to the Department of Community Development prior to submission of permit applications. 4, that all approvals and/or permits from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources are submitted to the Engineering Department and Department of Community Development prior to the submission of permit applications. Plans shall show the wetlands acquired from the parcel to the north with notations that they shall be preserved and undisturbed. 5, that copies of the Milwaukee County DOT access approvals and agreements shall be provided to the city prior to the submission of building permit applications. 6, that the plans are revised to incorporate all fire department comments. Substantive changes to the site and/or building shall require a new review and approval by the Plan Commission prior to the submission of permit applications. 7, that the landscape plans and tree preservation and replacement plan are revised to meet code requirements. 8, that the plans are revised to include locations for all mechanicals, transformers, and utilities. All mechanical equipment, transformers, and utility boxes, ground building, and rooftop shall be screened from view. 9. All light sources shall be full cutoff fixtures with the light source fully shielded and directed downward. Shields shall be on the side facing the residential properties across South 13th Street. The color temperature of the fixture shall be limited to a maximum of 3,500 kelvins on the west and 5,000 kelvins on the east. 10. That a detailed master sign plan is reviewed and approved by the Plan Commission prior to submission of sign permit applications. 11. That the plans are revised to incorporate all engineering department comments. Substantive changes to the site and/or building shall require a new review and approval by the Plan Commission prior to submission of permit applications. 12. That all revised plans, site building, landscaping, etc. are submitted in digital format for review by the Department of Community Development prior to the submission of building permit applications.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call, beginning with Dawn.
Grillo, aye. Kropinski, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Ladani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Anna, aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Have a great Thanksgiving. That will now get us to item 8B. That is a review of requests submitted by Josh Lurie, F Street Development Group, for amendments to the existing Lakeshore Common, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one. Item 8A, it's condominium plat first. Review a request submitted by F Street, OCLV LLC, for the residence and clubhouse at Lakeshore Commons Condominium, an expandable condominium. First Amendment plat affecting the properties at 4005 East Lake Vista Parkway. Doug.
Thank you. In April of this year, the commission reviewed and recommended approval of a condominium plat for the Lakeshore Commons Master Condominium and the residences and clubhouse at Lakeshore Commons. Those were ultimately approved by the Plan Commission, the Common Council, and recorded. However, there are a few revisions that have become necessary since that time. Before you is a revised condominium plat for that development in a number of sections. Some of the major changes are with respect to how the individual units are legally described. In the case, as was the case earlier, those units were described as part of a building envelope. This revised condominium plat describes them more as you would a lot, although they're not a lot or under single ownership, but it describes the legal area of the property that's under that limited right in the condo. Second of all, there were some changes that are being proposed as part of the general development plan for this development, which you'll see later this evening, as it relates to the types of uses, the types of structures along the northwesternly portion of this development along Lake Vista Parkway, changing those from villas to townhomes. And this subsequently changes that condominium plat to include those revisions to those townhomes. While not necessarily affecting the proposed condominium plat, there were some requirements for fire department access that we will discuss more so as part of the PUD amendments and how they may have changed given the change from the villas to the townhomes. But with that, staff has no objections to the proposed condominium plat and would recommend its approval, and a subsequent motion to that effect is shown on your screen. Any questions or comments?
The applicant like to say anything or just wait on questions? Okay. Chauncey, you want to start us off?
I do have a question for the applicant.
Oh, name and address, please.
Katie Menakis with Rinka, 756 North Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53202.
Chad Griswold, also with Rinka, 756 North Milwaukee Street,
My question is in regards to the change. So why the change from the single-family attached villas to the townhome?
So on the north side of the site, this affects, it was 18, we would consider villa homes. So they were paired units to the 28 townhomes. The major reason is the market. This allows more units with a lower price point within the development. And it's become, in terms of inquiries for units, very popular.
Thank you.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Fred?
No questions at this time.
Don?
No questions at this time.
Okay. Chris?
No questions.
Greg?
I have no questions, thank you.
Ashley?
No questions, thank
Dawn?
you. Nothing for me.
And Christine?
Yeah, nothing here.
No, and I think it was a very good question, and again, it's really taking advantage of the markets, and this will help the project overall, not only financially, but develop quicker as well. Okay. Seeing no further discussion, motion on 8A, please.
Guzekowski will make a motion that Plan Commission approves the residences and clubhouses at Lake Shore Commons condominium and expandable condominium first addendum plat submitted by F Street OCLV LLC at the property at 4005 East Lake Vista Parkway with the following conditions. One, that all relevant code requirements and conditions of the traditional neighborhood development plan unit remain in effect. Two, that all reviewing agency comments, if any, are incorporated as required. And three, that all revisions to the plat and declarations are submitted to the Department of Community Development prior to recording.
And I will second.
Roll call beginning with Ashley.
Chinsky, aye.
Lorick, aye.
David Chai.
Guzekowski, aye.
Oldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Anna, aye. Grillo, aye.
Okay, now it'll get us to 8B. Review a request by Josh Laurie, F Street Development Group for amendments to the existing Lakeshore Commons plan unit development affecting the properties at 4005 East Lake Vista. Doug, if you would, please.
Thank you. I think everyone's familiar with the Lakeshore Commons development and familiar with how complex the project can be at times. And as such, the plan unit development that was put into place to regulate this PUD really is an evolving document. And as such, as we've gained some experience with the actual development conditions for this plan unit development, there are several revisions that are being requested by the applicant to better reflect some of the conditions that they find themselves in the development in, both in terms of the field conditions and as in the case of the change from the villas to the townhomes, some market conditions as well. And this will be more of a discussion because there's a few things, but just wanted to point out a few of them, a few of those to you. The first is the general development plan that you see here. Looks very much like the one that was originally approved for the development. I think that what I'd like to highlight again is that change in the northwest corner from the villas to the townhomes. And yeah, I think that was really, with the exception of, I wanted to point out one more thing. In the, in kind of the southwest corner of the development, and which is the south corner of phase one, there was a change to the building orientation. For it used to be the A8 building. That's now the A7.3 building. It's this building. I know you can see my cursor there. Oh wait, you can. In this area here, pardon my circle, but whereas the original building showed kind of an L-shaped building that really blocked that interior parking field from the public view and public right of way on Lake Vista Boulevard, this new general development plan does change the orientation of that building slightly, such that there would be some off-street parking that would be located adjacent to the public right of way. And as we'll talk about a little bit later, staff does have some concern about that. And I think there's remedies to make that more palatable, but certainly, and not something that anyone wanted to encourage as part of this development or this planning development. The second, really, and I'm going to change screens here because there's a number of things that are. page open, apologies there. As part of the number of exhibits that are proposed for changes here, oh, did we lose our connection now? Hold on. I can't see it. That's not going to work. Nope. This, and I'll just kind of just describe this a little bit. This really includes some of the changes that are being proposed to the setbacks, and principally the front setbacks for the single family product that's being offered there. As we gain more experience with field conditions, the topography and the grading plans for this, as well as some of the designs of these buildings, it was found that the original setbacks of 10 feet really were being difficult to meet given the inclusion of porches, of planters, of stairs, and the applicants have requested that be reduced down to 5 feet, and in some cases they've actually asked for less than 5 feet for stairs as part of the setback. Staff really had a lot of internal discussion about this. The setbacks are, primarily and first and foremost, they're reductions from what we would require from our normal single family. We recognize that it's a traditional neighborhood. Setbacks don't need to be that big. That's why they're reduced in many cases from 30 feet down to 10 feet. We did have some concerns about not only the uniformity of the product that's being placed out there, but really some of these appurtenances that are being put in those setbacks, whether they be planters, porches, stairs, what have you. And as a solution, did say that the setback itself, as measured for the foundation, the principal building, stay at 10 feet, but that porches, planters, what have you, stairs can extend to within 5 feet. But staff felt pretty strongly that that a minimum 5-foot setback be held that would exclude all of those appurtenances. I think you'll hear from the applicants, and maybe now's the time, maybe we can wait till later, that they, in some circumstances, would want to include stairs, concrete stairs, within that 5-foot setback. That's not something that staff is supporting at this point in time. One other thing to note as part of this is that the original plans and what we had discussed really prohibited encroachments within easements, and in certain circumstances that may be acceptable. And in fact, the applicant has worked with our utility manager and utility department on a solution that will allow partial encroachments within a water main easement along Breakwater Boulevard. So as part of the changes, we are suggesting that any changes or any encroachments within city easements require written authorization from the city engineer. That's a workable solution for that one as well. It's awful to read, so forgive me, I'm skipping some of these. The changes, more so the changes related to a lot of the exhibits that were in place, and there were a number of exhibits as part of this, and we can go through those individual exhibits if you'd like. A lot of them are, for example, on the design and character of the buildings, and a lot of these were just to make those consistent across the board with all those exhibits. And given the sheer number of them, there were some discrepancies that staff had found between some of the exhibits. We just want to make sure that we tighten this up as much as possible. Kind of go through some of these exhibits. If there's any questions, please stop me. We can kind of see that no major changes to the typologies of the buildings here, all very much the same style, and again, no surprises here. What you will see again, as you look at the diagrams that accompany them, this will incorporate those setbacks which are shown in that new setback table. And just to explain that a little bit further, the setbacks, the side setbacks primarily, have been clarified such that the minimum side setback on any one side is 3 feet, but the total minimum space between buildings is 8 feet. I know that in some of the earlier building permits that have come through, we've had a few issues with those. This just clarifies this moving forward, that at any point between buildings, there's going to be at least 8 feet. This new table, Exhibit 3, again, takes into account the changes to the unit types in the townhomes on the northwest corner. It also adjusts the density and the number of units permitted. Just a new exhibit showing the amenities and kind of incorporating the new plans throughout, and that's a big thing. We just want to make sure that all of the exhibits were consistent with each other, so that they all reflected the changes that were being proposed. Here is an exhibit showing the circulation and road cross section. And this is probably a good time to talk about one of the proposed changes that maybe we don't agree with right now, and that is with respect to the use and the width of some of the private alleys. When the area along the northwest was shown as villas, and discussions with our city engineer at that point in time and fire department did result in a solution for a private alley that was 16 feet. And while that was certainly not our standard, it was something that, given the circumstances, was acceptable. As these buildings have now changed from villas to townhomes, in essence, multifamily buildings, there's a bit of a change in code. And the fire code at this point requires a 20-foot unobstructed pavement. And I'll let Assistant Chief Havey speak more to that. But, where 16 feet might have been acceptable as it relates to the state that included the villas, those single-family villas, it really may not be applicable as it applies to the townhomes. I know that's something which we don't have a consensus on at this point in time, but something that we can discuss. I think that the solution that's being proposed, and to be fair, has been proposed as part of the single-family as well, was for a 16-foot alley with a 4-foot apron on not only the townhomes, but with the adjacent single family. So in essence, you can get to 20 feet if you include the aprons. But I think where we're struggling a little bit is that the code requires unobstructed 20 feet of pavement, and the plans that they're proposed right now do not show that unobstructed width of 20 feet. So maybe at this point in time, I'd invite Katie or Chad or whomever to kind of maybe describe the situation from their perspective. I also invite Assistant Chief Havey to discuss the city's position as it relates to the code.
First of all, I just want to thank Doug and Carrie and everyone at the city. As you said, Doug, this is an incredibly complex development, a lot of different moving pieces. And partnership we've had with the planning office has been excellent, and that we're down to these few discussion points is really just a testament to all the hard work that's been done. So thank you for that. In terms of the townhome change, I guess I would just offer a couple of things. One is, the single-family homes, had the 16-foot alleyway, so we're not changing that from what the original plan was. This is a little bit more dense. It is 28 units instead of 18 units. It is a multifamily use, and as part of that change in use, the code also requires that those buildings be fire sprinkled. So all those buildings are fully sprinkled as part of that code change. We do have about a 16-foot buffer, I would say, between the garages and that 16-foot alleyway. So if this is a requirement by the city, we do have room to make that widening of the alleyway. It takes away some opportunity, perhaps, to have compact, let's say, but it could be some opportunities for additional parking in that alleyway and the garages. So I think if we take that 4 feet, we're probably eliminating that opportunity again, even though it was a compact situation.
I'd also like to add that the alleys, the 16-foot alleys were never intended for fire access, so that the lots are small enough, and there was early discussions about having all the fire access from the fronts, which is the same condition as it would be if it was single-family versus townhouse.
That's true, but it's also true that a significant portion of those buildings on the west side, there is a detention basin between the front setback and the public street. So, I'm not going to speak for the fire department, but I suspect there'd be challenges in servicing those properties from the public street. And maybe while Mike's coming up here, I mean, the 4-foot apron along those alleys was never intended as a supplemental parking spot, because that would reduce the width of that alley beyond the minimums required for safety and service reasons.
Okay, good evening again. Mike Havey, Assistant Chief of the Fire. So to kind of look at this project, the fire department does not have the scope or authority to plan review single-family houses. So, now there is the scope of authority falls in the fire department for the multifamily buildings. We also look at the hazard risk. Single-family homes that we have an operational plan for, we designed an incident management plan based on access and water supply, which we thought were satisfied with the intent of the original plan. That's changed. The hazard risk has changed, and I'll use some terminology here. Hopefully, if you need some clarification, please ask me. But what I refer to as fire load or fuel load, those structures are changing. Now, they will have an automatic suppression system in there designed by code, but a suppression system is designed to suppress the fire before the fire department arrives on scenes to finish extinguishment or anything else. So what we look at is water systems. I use the word FDC, a fire department connection. So that is where we supplement the water supply to that building. That requires an additional piece of apparatus that we didn't typically need on a single family. So we're bringing more equipment in to handle this higher risk. So that's why the code requires, this is a nationalized standard code. This is not germane to Oak Creek or local. This is a state of Wisconsin code, a national code. So that 20 feet of unobstructed access is required anywhere. So, that's where we're, having some issues with that to make sure we ensure that for the safety of the residents there, the occupants, that when we have to come in and manage a situation, that we can provide the appropriate services. So that's as basic as I can kind of lay that out for you so you understand why we take that risk very seriously. If there's, any other questions, hopefully I've kind of laid that groundwork of why we feel that is an important part of fire department access. And typically, if I'm up here on certain specifics or talk about things, that hopefully there's an understanding of why we're here talking about access. Because, at this point, I think there was a significant change, and I think we're measuring that change. We want to accommodate that we can also adapt to that change. I'll leave it at that.
Dave? Further, Doug?
We can kind of cycle through the rest of the exhibits, but here you can see what we're talking about with respect to the standard alleyway, which is that connector? There we go. Yes, I'm sorry. But you can see the standard alleyway on the upper half of the page, which shows that 4-foot apron on either side. And there's a separate category for a connector, which is essentially an alley that doesn't have any access to it from some of the individual units or homes, which is just that 16-foot. I'm sorry, which will be 20 feet. My apologies. So that really what we're talking about is the area adjacent to the townhomes. The materials, in effect, are unchanged. I don't think there are any changes to that. As the development signage shows one other additional location for signage, but essentially staff doesn't have any concerns about that. Snow storage areas, I think, we always felt that they were minimal, but we are willing to accept that it's workable for the developer and for the development company, management company, and owners of those units. And these are just showing some of the conditions under which recycling and refuse and garbage will be collected and stored. For the most part, where you've got room within the garage, it's going to be within the garage. Where there's not, there's a requirement for screening of that those waste receptacles. And here's the setbacks, kind of the diagrams that accompany that table, which kind of describe the setbacks that are in place or will be in place for each of those development types and each of those development conditions. And this, before you saw some of the single family, these are the 2 and 3 unit villas, as well as the townhomes, 6 and 8 unit townhomes, and some of the other buildings, the clubhouse, the A9 buildings, A8 buildings, which are now A7.3. I don't know what the other one is. Why'd you do that? As well as some of the future buildings in the second phase. This is the document as revised, which incorporates those changes. This would be the conditions and restrictions that now would form the basis for the plan unit development. See, that table is translated as part of these conditions and restrictions as well. There's just a list of exhibits, and all of which you've seen this evening. So with that, those are the substantive changes, PUD that are being requested this evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions or address any comments the commission has at this point.
Okay, thank you, Doug. We'll go right to the commission. Christine?
Yes, actually, I do have a question. Exhibit 11.5, the setback diagram for the townhome. So we don't have anything between the residents for versus like the town villas. As between the villas, we have like 8 feet between the residents. Do we have anything between the townhomes?
The 6 and 8 unit townhomes that are shown on the screen here are there are actually 4 buildings under construction right now. Those prototypes are just another option that have 2-story front to back orientation.
So no, the villas are really designed almost as single family homes where the garages are attached. The townhomes have a shared lawn. It's just a different building typology where they don't have yards in between. They just have the front and back.
But the setback between the townhomes and any adjacent villas would be what?
It would be 8 feet still between any building. And actually, we're nowhere near that. We're exceeding that, right? But that minimum is just for flexibility also with grading and site conditions. A lot of these buildings, this is 17, 18 feet from the north to the south throughout the site, so we're doing our best to locate a standard product in an atypical location.
So I understand what you're saying, but doesn't it depends on how wide those townhomes? It cannot be like 20 or 30 widths of those townhomes, even though they're attached. But it should be certain widths before it gets a setback between both of them till it gets to the next one. So what is the maximum width between the townhomes before you do the next one? Meaning, like if you have 3 townhomes and then you have the next second set or the third set. So what is the difference in between?
Sure. The way that we're proposing it right now are in pairs, and there's approximately 25 to 35 feet between. We have a lot of the metering, air conditioning units, a lot of that kind of clustered in the middle to have it more concealed than around the perimeter. So we're nowhere near the 3 feet in any instance on the site. So we're asking for 3 feet for consistency throughout all the products, housing types, but it's approximately 25 feet minimum at any location.
So like I'm looking on the screen for unit 8. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is the maximum?
It's actually 8. There's a...
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So there are 3 different types. In phase 1 under construction are 6 unit type, 8 unit type, and then in the following sheet there's a 9 unit type that doesn't come into play until phase 2 and 2.5. Most of them are 2-story units, so each of those kind of narrow bars are 2-story units. You live in both, and then on the side there's one which is a ranch, and above that a raised ranch. So there's just, again, a mix of different types to offer flexibility for interested buyers.
Is there any concern from the fire department in the middle of those townhomes for accessibility from the side or anything from that sort, especially if there is no from side to side any accessibility from that point? It's just either only the front or back, that's it.
Again, Mike Avey with Fire. If I understand the question, it's really the accessibility between the structures themselves. That's not typically, we're looking at the access from operational, that our equipment and our hose, how our hose deployments lay out or things of that nature. It's hard to predict our incident management plan to certain degrees until that event happens. So if there's enough space between the buildings, and that's also a code, one of the code constraints that, for those size buildings, if there is, the tolerance is there, that's what we deal with. So I hope I answered that a little bit. I know it's a little kind of broken up a little bit.
Yeah, maybe my question is not that clear. Like, for example, you have 8 units, 8 units within one building, okay? So let's assume the middle one. You only have accessibility from the front, or maybe from the back, from the garage, or maybe the back porch or something like that, okay? These are the only 2 accessibility you have for that townhome. So my question is, if those are the 2 accessibility to that townhome, are those going to be enough, especially if there's something in the middle of that building, is it enough for you to access to it? And I understand you said it's accessibility wise, but.
So I think if I understand this correctly, and I'll try to answer this in the way that, so it's really what our hose load lengths are desired to be. So we have 250 foot of attack hose. So if we have to stretch around a building to come in from, the rear of the building, we're designed, we're able to do that, or the front of the building. So we do have some flexibility with where we make entry based on where that fire is or where we can get in. So we design our equipment to give us, we call a little extra stretch with our hose. If we had 250 feet, we only need 100 feet to get to a door, we have extra. So we do make those accommodations.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Hey, Christine?
Thank you.
Huh? Greg?
So I'm assuming that we have to come to a consensus on the various items. I'm in support of the 20-foot alleyway, which was discussed. As far as the setbacks that staff was recommending, are those incorporated in the new conditions and restrictions?
They are, in the sense that they show a 5-foot minimum setback. Yeah, staff's understanding in our review of the permits is that, that the building foundation is going to be 10 feet, but we do allow the porches and what have you, the planters, the stairs to encroach that minimum 5-foot level. But the difference is, there have been instances where the applicants have suggested that they would be looking for further encroachments of the stairs less than 5 feet, and that's where we're not coming to an agreement.
I guess a question for the applicant, on some of the renderings of the single-family homes, it looks like the planter boxes are right up against the sidewalk. Is that how they are, or is there space?
So there've been, several iterations or design revisions. There's lots of base and upgrade option also. The base does not have any front planters. It's an upgrade option, and we do not have that within the 5-foot setbacks. They're within they're set off the sidewalks.
Okay.
And, maybe if I could just speak to the stair issue a bit to help clarify that. I think what, we're in agreement to keep the building structure stairs out of that 5-foot setback. Even though it is a challenge on some parts of the site just because of grading. If you've been out there, you can see there's a lot of topography, and in some sites there's actually 5 to 6 feet of grade that happens between the garage and the front porch. So it varies, and some of them are very flat, obviously, as well. I think what we're asking for flexibility on in that 5-foot zone is you'll have a concrete walkway that connects to the sidewalk, and then that would connect to the stairs that go up into your home. If that 5-foot zone ends up not being flat or level, if there is grade within that, so it starts pitching up to the home to accommodate grade or to reduce the foundation that's exposed, we're asking for the flexibility to add a stair or 2 within that zone in the concrete, so that we can accommodate the grade that's happening in that 5-foot area. The intention isn't to do the entire rise of stairs up to the porch within that zone. It's just to accommodate different slopes that might happen in that 5-foot bench.
I'd be fine with that. I don't know if there's a way to specifically outline that in the conditions and restrictions.
Yeah, I think I'd look to Ashley, but certainly if there's changes in grade that need to be accommodated through accessibility requirements, I think we're just asking that the stairs from the structure itself not, encroach upon that. I mean, if you got to make that transition to get to that point, we understand that, but we don't want to see that, just become a habit of just taking the stairway right from the 5-foot line all the way to the sidewalk, because I think we think that creates some challenges for our operational responsibilities along that pathway.
And then, yeah, as far as the alleyway, 20 feet is the code, then I would support the 20 foot. I guess with that being a private alleyway, is there any enforcement options if people start parking their cars outside there? I mean, I grew up on an alley, so I know people just park their cars wherever they want. Is there any type of enforcement that the city can do, or is that on the development since it's a private
That's
alleyway?
really on the developer and the management company. I think push comes to shove, the city being in some way, shape, or form, signatory to the condominium development declarations, may have some ability to do something there, but I wouldn't recommend it.
So yeah, I guess that's my sense. Thanks.
Thanks, Greg. Chris?
I agree with Alderman Lorik on the 20-foot alley setback, and that's it.
Don?
Doug, on the 20-foot alley, I guess I got a little confused as we were going along. Is there right now a dispute between keeping the alley as it is and requiring it to be 20 feet? The way I think I understand it was 16 with 4-foot aprons, and they're going to leave it. They want to leave it as is and call the 4-foot apron part of the 20 feet.
Yes.
And we're saying no to that, or that's being challenged, correct?
Right. In essence, that additional 4-foot apron, while it may be clear, we hope it's clear, but we're already seeing instances where there need to be garbage cans there, or where there's bump outs that aren't necessarily paved. So we can't be
Parking is probably the big one.
we just can't be certain of that fact, and it's really, I don't to draw this as, well, staff thinks, or staff thinks this, or staff thinks that. It's a code requirement.
Right. So I guess what are we being asked to do about this? Does this need to be added into the motion?
It doesn't. I think that it just the code's the code, and we just
Right.
wanted to make the applicant certainly aware of that, and we just wanted to clarify that there was some request for taking a look at that to see if there were some creative solutions to that. We don't think there are.
Okay, good. I was getting a sense that we had a decision to make about that. So no, as long as it's clear that it's going to be 20 feet, then I'm fine with it. No, I'm clear on it. Thanks.
Okay, Fred, floor is yours.
That's my concern too, the 16-foot alleys. I don't buy that. I'm into the safety end of it and supporting the fire department, because if you have something that's tight and you try to get back there and do something, you just can't do it. And then the other thing is visitor parking. I don't really see anything laid out to cover those people if they want to come and visit and you have more than 2 people. How do you handle that?
We've talked about that a lot, and our concerns about parking have been pretty well documented. But certainly along the public streets, the single family portion, there is ample opportunity for visitor parking. Albeit with the provision that that's not all taken up by the residents. But I think that's something I'm less concerned about that, Commissioner Seipert, than I am about some of the areas that don't have access to that public street parking.
It's just a little tight, I think. If you don't have that, what do you do with those people, and how do you handle the situation? I'm concerned about it. Now, the parking for the resident themselves are basically in their garage, right? They don't park on the street, so if they can't get in their garage, Where do they go?
So every home has a 2-car garage minimum, and they have options to do a 2.5 or a 3-car garage. So that's available to each resident, depending on what their parking needs are.
I don't know if you've ever been down Howell Avenue and County Line with those developments where they have a similar setup like you do. I would say right now the majority of the garages that they have for parking are full. They don't have basements, so everything goes in the garage. So I see a potential problem with parking for the residents if they utilize the garage for storage.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. It is something we've been thinking about a lot as well. And so that is, one of the reasons we offer the 2.5-car garage that has 2 car spots, and it has another 6 to 8 feet for storage. All the homes are also being offered with the ability to loft the garage. Something we've been concerned about and addressed proactively. And the one thing I might add is that the distinction between those two developments in particular is that this development does not have the public street really dissected by a number of different driveways, so that there's probably more parking along the public streets than you would have in a typical situation. But certainly in that development, you don't have that, and I don't know that you could find a spot between the driveways that it could even fit a car.
Look at our winter parking restrictions that we have, and what do you handle in that situation? Same with cleaning out an alley. Potential if you have the Buffalo snow that happened recently, how could you handle and get into your garage or even into the alley? I just see some potential with a narrow alley.
Designated areas identified in the PUD exhibits that show where the collections, like the main collections, can happen, and that it's understood that the private alleys will be remedied of snow in those areas.
Doug, do their streets come under the city? Do we maintain their streets?
The public streets are, yes.
They are public streets.
Not the alleys aren't public though.
No, I'm not talking, I'm just talking the streets.
Yep.
They're maintained by the city then.
Yes.
Thank you.
Then, Fred?
Okay. I've had it. I'm done.
Okay. Jossie?
No questions, thank you.
Before, and I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I didn't mean to cut you off, but maybe before the commission makes a motion on that, I just want to at least draw your attention to the future plans for the multifamily buildings in phase 2 on the south end. Some of the general development plans were developed not really knowing what those were going to be. I think now as we see those kind of put into play, especially with I got the number already, but being, further refined and what that actually going to be, I think that we're a little concerned, well, more than a little concerned about the minimal setbacks that are being proposed in some of the exhibits. I mean, we're showing setbacks with minimum widths of 2 feet in some instances. Well, certainly that may be appropriate in a more urban setting or even Drexel Town Square. The staff doesn't feel that that's in any way, shape, or form appropriate along Lake Vista Boulevard, which serves as the major entrance to this development, as well as to Lake Vista Park and Bender Park. So, we appreciate the developer really taking that to heart and, bringing back plans that will provide a more appropriate entranceway and kind of open space along that major corridor into the city's major investment at Lake Vista Park.
Okay, thank you, Doug. All major points were pretty much covered by the commissioners as it went down the line here. Again, we all know what it focused on, really, setbacks, width of the alley. Code is code on that. Can't really override that. Setbacks, I do understand where you're coming from, but I think we do have to be conscious, just Doug's last statement, particularly on the main thoroughfares. But I do understand the topography can add some dimensions to you. Maybe your stairs are coming out right at the same thing. May have to do something a little creative there. Maybe instead of your steps that are straight out, kind of zigzag and, the length of the house instead of straight out. But I think we should be conscious of that. Winter parking restrictions. Greg brought up a really good point. They are citywide here. So I would imagine there'll be no street parking December 1st through March 1st, I think.
That is the city's rule.
April 1st. So that could be a little bit of a complication for folks that choose to work from home as well. I do get it though, it is a different type of neighborhood. It is a traditional neighborhood, somewhat in the same sense. Everybody will be neighbors and you'll know your neighbors. But it'll be more urbanized, I guess, so to speak. Similar to what you might see in Chicago, Philadelphia, New York, things of that nature. Doug, do you think this is stuff we can work through?
Oh, sure. We've been working through things from day one. We'll continue to work things until day 1001.
And this is, I think Doug said it early on, this is a really challenging site. This is a really special, unique thing going on down here. Last week we had the privilege, getting a little off topic, but at Lake Vista Pavilion, we had a little ceremony, and Larry Haskins, who spearheaded the redevelopment of this site, got a plaque down there, as well as Janet Fugel, a long time park commissioner. One of the shelters was named after her as well. But what was interesting is there was a photo down there of this particular site, actually where Lake Vista was. And it looked more industrialized than the power plant actually does today. If you would have looked at that picture, you wouldn't have believed what was down there in 1930. Working at this point here, and I realize it's almost 90 years back, but to transform it into what we're doing is really special with all the parties involved. So we're going to have these difficulties going forward, but boy, we've come light years. I was absolutely amazed to look at where these home developments are going and what was once there and closed off to the public. So kudos to everybody involved, staff, and everybody up from the state to the DNR, and of course, F Street for taking on this challenge, because I don't think this is everybody's cup of tea to come in here and try to work through this. I really didn't say anything pertinent there, but commissioners, you did cover it, so it's the 20-foot and a setback. Staff feels comfortable, they can get through with them, work through it. I'm okay. So, are there any further discussions or questions? Okay. Let's try a motion on 8B. 8B.
York moves to recommend that the Common Council approve the amendments to the Lakeshore Commons Traditional Neighborhood Development Planned Unit Development for the properties at 9116 and 9300 South Fifth Avenue and 4005 East Lake Vista Parkway after a public hearing and subject to conditions and restrictions.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call, Greg?
Lorick, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Oldani, aye.
Seibert, no.
Chandler, aye.
Hannah, aye.
Furlow, aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Before we adjourn, Thanksgiving is upon us, so I want to wish each of you a happy Thanksgiving holiday. Hope you get some time with your family and friends. 8 a.m. Thursday, we have a turkey trek right here at Emerald Row. So Alderman Guzekowski, myself will be there. We'll be collecting non-perishables for those in need. They go to local food pantries. Come join us. Great way to start your day. Grab a cup of coffee and take a nice brisk walk. It's supposed to be pretty nice, I believe. Something else really different here in the square, we have World Cup weekend in the square. So the World Cup's going on. We're going to have tents, watch party, see see the USA team try to advance themselves in the World Cup. So if you have time, take advantage of that Friday. It's also Small Business Saturday, off our shopping season. So again, if you can shop locally at a small business, whether in Oak Creek or anywhere else, please patronize them this Saturday. Remember, all businesses start as small. One other thing I want to mention, I was invited to a premiere by Eater Flag. Eater Flag is the largest manufacturer of American flags in the United States, and they reside right here in Oak Creek. And a movie documentary was produced on them called The Flag Makers. It's going to premiere on National Geographic on December 8th, as well as Disney Plus on December 21st. Very powerful documentary about the people that work there, and the majority of them are immigrants that have come here and are making their living right here in Oak Creek. It's powerful, a lot of stories going on about these people that are making the flag, how proud they are to do it, and all their different backgrounds, where they came from, and their stories. It's huge, so if you get the time, I know we won't meet again until after the 8th, but if you get a chance, check your local listings. Really take it in. It was a powerful movie, well done. I can't be prouder to say Eater Flag is part of the city of Oak Creek, and has been for a very long time. With that, it'll get us to adjournment.
Brillo moves to adjourn at 7:07.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call. Bukavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Oldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Anna, I.
Brillo, aye.
Kipchinsky, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Hey, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your holiday.